The space station Harmony 7 hung like a silver jewel against the black of space. Inside, the hallways bustled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had blue skin, others had 4 arms, and a few even floated rather than walked. They all belonged to the Galactic Federation, a group of over 200 peaceful alien species. Ambassador Zarleth of the Valari rushed through these crowded halls. His thin gray body moved quickly, his large eyes blinking rapidly in distress. Something was very wrong. He reached his office and sealed the door behind him. The communication device on his desk blinked urgently. With trembling fingers, he activated it and a hologram appeared. It showed another Valari, his clothing torn and smoke filling the air behind him. Ambassador, the Crixians have attacked our homeworld. The hologram flickered as an explosion sounded in the background. They bypassed our defense grid. The cities are burning. The Federation response ships are too far away. We cannot hold out much longer. Zarleth felt his heart sink. The Crixians were brutal predators from the outer rim of the galaxy. For months they had been conquering peaceful worlds, but no one expected them to target Valerie Prime so soon. I will request emergency aid immediately, Zarleth promised. There is no time. The hologram shook as another explosion rocked the building. The Federation Council takes too long to decide. We need help now. Zarleth blinked slowly, considering something that no Federation member had ever seriously proposed. There might be one option, the Deathworlders. The hologram went silent for a moment. You mean the humans? But they are dangerous, unpredictable. The Council has kept them isolated for 50 years for good reason. They are also the strongest warriors in this part of the galaxy, Zarleth replied, and they value helping others, even strangers. It is worth the risk. The transmission crackled. Do what you must, Ambassador. We have nothing to lose. The hologram disappeared as the connection cut out. Zarleth moved quickly to his secure communication terminal. The humans had been discovered 50 years ago, but the Federation had kept them at arm's length. Their planet, Sol 3, or Earth as they called it, was classified as a death world, a planet so harsh and dangerous that it produced species with frightening resilience and strength. Humans could survive radiation levels that would kill most. Federation species. They could keep fighting with injuries that would incapacitate others. They could eat foods that would poison most aliens. Even more alarming, they had evolved as pursuit predators and could run down prey over long distances, a hunting method that horrified the more peaceful species of the galaxy. Yet despite keeping humans isolated, the Federation had maintained basic diplomatic contact. Zarleth knew the emergency frequencies. With shaking hands, he prepared a message and aimed it toward human space. The message was simple. Help us. We are dying. Commander Eli Wright of the United Earth Defense Force stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, the UES Sentinel. He was a tall man with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. His ship patrolled the edge of human space, making sure pirates and smugglers stayed away from Earth's colonies. Commander, we're picking up a transmission, said the communications officer. It's not on any of our regular channels. Wright frowned. Source? Sir, it's coming from deep in Federation space. It appears to be an alien transmission aimed directly at us. This was unusual. The Galactic Federation mostly ignored humans, occasionally sending diplomats, but never seeking real friendship. They feared Earth's death world status and what it might mean if humans spread throughout the stars. Put it through, Wright ordered. The message was short, just 6 words. Help us. We are dying. Wright didn't hesitate. Send this to Earth Command. Immediately. Priority Alpha. 20 minutes later, Admiral Susan Bradley sat in the main conference room at Earth Defense Headquarters. She was in her 60s with silver hair cut in a practical style and a face lined by years of difficult decisions. Around her sat the highest-ranking officers of Earth's military. Play it again, she ordered. The message repeated, Help us. We are dying. Analysis confirms it came from the Valari ambassador on Harmony 7, said General Paul Martinez. Intelligence suggests the Crixians have attacked their homeworld. The Crixians, Bradley said thoughtfully. The Federation has been fighting them for months and losing ground. Why ask us for help? Asked Fleet Captain Olivia Diaz. They've made it clear they don't want us involved in galactic affairs. Because they're desperate, Bradley replied. And because they know what we can do. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant. Humans had spent millennia fighting each other before reaching the stars. When they finally achieved space travel, they discovered most alien species had evolved on gentler worlds and lacked humanity's instinct for warfare and survival. If we help them, said Martinez carefully, it could change everything. The Federation might finally accept us as equals, or they might fear us even more when they see what we're capable of, Diaz countered. Bradley looked at the star map showing the Valari system. It would take the fleet 3 days to reach them at maximum speed. 3 days during which millions could die. Captain Diaz, what's the status of the fleet? 73 warships ready for deployment. The UES Valiant can lead as flagship under Captain Holt. Bradley stood up and looked around the table. Ladies and gentlemen, for 50 years we've been waiting for the Federation to accept us, to see past their fear of what we are. Today, someone in that Federation has reached out to us not because of what they fear we might do, but because of what they hope we can do. She straightened her uniform. Send the fleet, all of it. Show them what humanity truly is. Within hours, Earth's orbital shipyards buzzed with activity. Massive warships broke formation and aligned for faster-than-light travel. On the flagship UES Valiant, Captain Gregory Holt received his final orders. Holt was 45, with a strong build and calm, steady eyes. He had fought pirates and raiders for 20 years. Now he would lead humanity's first major engagement against an alien threat. The Crixians won't expect us, said Admiral Bradley over the secure channel. Hit them hard and fast. Show them what happens when you threaten innocent lives. Understood, Admiral, Holt replied. We won't let the Valari down. As the human fleet prepared to depart, a Federation observer named Trillax watched in stunned silence from a diplomatic vessel. The aliens had expected to find a minor defense force of perhaps a dozen ships. Instead, they saw over 70 warships, each bristling with weapons and armor. These weren't the primitive Deathworlders the Federation had been monitoring from a distance. This was an organized, disciplined force, with technology nearly matching Federation standards. The human fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving Trillax to send an urgent message to the Federation Council. The humans are coming, and they're bringing an armada. On the bridge of the UES Valiant, Captain Holt looked at the crew around him. They were ready, determined to prove that humans were more than just Deathworlders. They were protectors, too. All ships report ready, Captain, said his executive officer. Holt nodded. Then let's go save some aliens. The massive engines of the UES Valiant hummed with power as the ship led Earth's fleet through faster-than-light travel. Captain Gregory Holt stood on the bridge, watching his crew work with practiced efficiency. The ship was the pride of Earth's fleet, nearly half a mile long with weapons that could reduce a small moon to rubble. Lieutenant Amy Porter sat at the tactical station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. She was 32 with short blonde hair and serious eyes that rarely missed anything. Unlike many of the crew who seemed excited about their mission, Porter looked troubled. Something on your mind, Lieutenant? Holt asked, moving to stand beside her station. Porter glanced up, surprised that the captain had noticed her mood. Permission to speak freely, sir? Always. She lowered her voice. Why are we doing this? These aliens have kept us at arm's length for 50 years. They've blocked our attempts to join their federation. They call us Deathworlders like it's something to be ashamed of, and now we're rushing to save them with our entire fleet? Holt wasn't surprised by the question. Many in the fleet shared Porter's concerns. He thought about his grandfather, who had fought in Earth's last great war before humans reached the stars. My grandfather used to tell me stories about World War III, he said quietly, about the cities that burned and the millions who died. But he also told me about strangers helping strangers. about enemies who called temporary truces to rescue civilians trapped in the fighting. He looked out at the streaking stars visible on the main screen. Someone asked for our help, Lieutenant. They're dying, that's reason enough. Porter nodded slowly, though she didn't look entirely convinced. I understand, sir. I'll do my duty. I know you will, Holt replied with a small smile. We all will, and maybe after this, they'll see us differently. In another part of the ship, Diplomatic Officer Kevin Reeves worked frantically in his small office. Reeves was a slender man with dark skin and quick, nervous movements. Around him, screens displayed everything Earth knew about the Valari and the Crixians. The door chimed and Captain Holt entered. How's it going, Reeves? Learning anything useful? Reeves ran a hand over his short hair. Not enough, sir. The Federation's database on the Crixians is extensive, but their information about us is, well, it's mostly wrong. Wrong how? They think we're barely controlled savages, Reeves said, pointing to one screen showing a Federation assessment of humans. According to this, we're unpredictable, violent, and driven by primitive instincts. They've completely misunderstood our culture and motivations. Holt frowned. Can you correct these misconceptions? I'm trying, sir. I've prepared standard first contact protocols and emergency communication packages. But, Reeves hesitated. But, what? But I'm not sure they'll listen. They expect us to arrive like barbarians. They have no idea we're coming as professionals. Holt placed a hand on the younger man's shoulder. Then we'll show them. Actions speak louder than words, especially in combat. 3 days into their journey, the fleet approached the jump point that would take them to the Valari system. The mood throughout the ships was tense. For most crew members, this would be their first encounter with aliens other than the occasional Federation diplomat. On the observation deck of the UES Valiant, off-duty crew gathered to watch the final preparations. Among them was Sergeant Frank, Miller of the Marine contingent. He was a solid man with a quiet demeanor that hid a fierce fighting spirit. Think we'll actually have to land ground forces? Asked Private Diana Cole, a young Marine standing next to him. Miller watched as support ships moved into position around the larger warships. Count on it. Orbital bombardment might drive the Crixians back temporarily, but taking back cities needs boots on the ground. Have you ever seen a real alien, Sarge? Not just in videos? Once, Miller said. Federation diplomatic team visited Earth when I was stationed in New Geneva. Strange-looking creatures. Didn't say much to us military types. Were you scared? Miller laughed softly. Of them? No. They looked like they'd break if you shook their hands too hard. I meant, Cole clarified, aren't you scared now? We're about to fight aliens we've never even met. Miller turned to look at the younger Marine. The enemy doesn't matter, Cole. Human, alien, it's all the same. Our job is to protect those who can't protect themselves. Aboard a small Federation observation vessel trailing the human fleet, the alien observer Trillax watched with growing amazement. Trillax had 3 eyes and skin that shifted colors with his emotions. Right now, his skin was pale yellow with shock. He had been sent to monitor the humans, but he had never expected this response. The Federation Council had believed humans might send a small force, perhaps 5 or 6 ships as a token gesture. Instead, they had mobilized their entire fleet for a species they barely knew. Fascinating creatures, Trillax muttered to himself as he recorded everything. So much more complex than we thought. His assistant, a younger alien named Vexlor, looked worried. Are we sure bringing them was wise? Look at the weapons on those ships. The Council will be alarmed. The Council should be alarmed, Trillax replied, but not by human weapons, by how wrong we've been about them all these years. As the human fleet prepared for the final jump to the Valari system, Captain Holt called all hands to battle stations. The crew of the Valiant moved with practiced precision, checking systems and preparing weapons. All ships report ready, Captain, said Commander Ben Lawson, Holt's second in command. Communications, send one final message to Earth before we jump, Holt ordered. Lieutenant Porter looked up from her station. What should it say, sir? Holt thought for a moment. Tell them, we go to bring help, not conquest. To show the galaxy what humanity truly stands for. Porter nodded and sent the message. "Jump in 30 seconds," announced the navigation officer. Throughout the fleet, humans prepared for what might be the most important moment in their species' history. They had been isolated and feared for decades. Now they would show the galaxy who they really were. 10 seconds to jump," called the navigator. Captain Holt took a deep breath. "Let's make a good first impression." The massive engines of 73 warships engaged simultaneously. Space bent around them as they tore through the fabric of reality, jumping across light years in an instant. The human fleet emerged at the edge of the Valerie system, and what they saw made even the most hardened veterans fall silent. The beautiful Valari homeworld was surrounded by smoke and debris. Orbital platforms lay in ruins, and around the planet, hundreds of Crixian warships continued their relentless bombardment of the surface. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Porter. Captain Holt's face hardened. "Battle stations. All ships. Defensive formation Delta." He paused, then added, "And open a channel to the Crixian fleet. Let's see if they'll listen to reason before we have to show them our strength." No one on the bridge believed the Crixians would listen, but that was the human way. Offer peace first, even when prepared for war. Captain Holt stood tall on the bridge of the UES Valiant as his communications officer opened a channel to the Crixian fleet. "Attention, Crixian vessels. This is Captain Gregory Holt of the United Earth Defense Force. Cease hostilities immediately and withdraw from this system." For several seconds, there was no response. The bridge crew watched the main screen where hundreds of alien ships continued to fire upon the Valari planet below. "Sir," said Lieutenant Porter from her tactical station, "I'm detecting energy buildups in several Crixian vessels. They're targeting us." Holt's expression hardened. "So that's how it's going to be. All ships, defensive formation Delta, weapons free." Bright streaks of energy burst from the nearest Crixian ships, racing toward the human fleet. The UES Valiant shuddered as its shields absorbed multiple hits. "Shields holding at 86%, reported Porter. "Their weapons are powerful, but not as strong as we expected." "Return fire," ordered Holt. "Target their lead vessels. Let's show them what Earthships can do." The human fleet responded with devastating precision. Rails guns fired slugs at incredible speeds. Laser arrays cut through Crixian shields. Missiles streaked across space, each carrying enough explosive power to level a small city. The Crixians had expected an easy victory against what they thought would be primitive ships. What they got instead was a fleet of warships built by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. From his observation vessel at a safe distance, Trillax watched in stunned amazement. His skin had turned bright blue with shock. "Impossible," he whispered as he recorded everything. "Their ships are absorbing damage that would destroy our vessels instantly. And their weapons..." His assistant Vexilor could barely speak. "The Crixians are pulling back. The humans are driving them away from the planet." Indeed, several Crixian ships were already retreating, damaged beyond their ability to continue fighting. The human fleet pressed forward, creating a protective barrier between the attackers and the Valari homeworld. On the bridge of the Valiant, Commander Lawson approached Captain Holt. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the planet's surface. Thousands of Valari are trapped in the capital city. The Crixians have landing parties on the ground." Holt nodded grimly. "Prepare the dropships. Tell Sergeant Miller to get his Marines. Ready? We're going down there." Lieutenant Porter looked up from her console. "Captain, I'd like to lead the fighter squadron to provide air support for the evacuation ships." Holt studied her for a moment. Despite her earlier reservations, Porter's expression now showed nothing but determination. "Approved," Holt said. "Keep those fighters safe, Lieutenant." Porter stood and saluted. "Yes, sir." Within minutes, dozens of human fighters launched from the larger ships, with Porter leading the squadron. The sleek craft darted through space, engaging the smaller Crixian ships that tried to target the civilian evacuation vessels rising from the planet. Porter's voice was calm over the comm system as she directed her pilots. "Charlie team, form up on those medical transports. Delta team, with me. We need to clear a path through those destroyers." In the dropship bay of the Valiant, Sergeant Frank Miller checked his gear one last time. Around him, 50 Marines did the same. Their powered armor would protect them from most weapons and even allow them to function in the toxic atmospheres the Crixians had released on the planet. "Listen up," Miller called to his troops. "These people have never seen humans. Before, we probably look as alien to them as they do to us. But today we show them that humans protect the innocent, no matter what species they are." The Marines nodded, their faces serious behind their helmet visors. They had trained for years for a moment like this. The dropships launched, descending rapidly toward the Valari capital city. Through the viewport, Miller could see the once beautiful alien city now burning under Crixian attack. Tall, crystal-like structures lay shattered. Green parks were scorched black. 30 seconds to touchdown, announced the pilot. Miller checked his weapon. "Remember your training. Stay together. Watch for civilians." The dropship landed with a thud in what had once been a public square. The doors hissed open, and the Marines moved out in perfect formation. The scene outside was chaos. The Valari, thin gray aliens with large eyes, ran in panic as Crixian troops advanced through the streets. The Crixians were larger, with scale-like skin and sharp claws that gleamed in the light of the burning buildings. "Defensive positions," ordered Miller. "Begin evacuation procedures." The Marines worked with practiced efficiency, setting up a secure perimeter around the square. As they did, the Valari began to notice the strange new aliens in their midst. At first they kept their distance, unsure if these newcomers were friends or more enemies. A young Valari child stumbled toward the Marines, clearly injured. Without hesitation, Miller stepped forward, kneeling down to the child's level. "It's okay," he said softly, knowing the child couldn't understand his words but hoping his tone would convey his meaning. "We're here to help." The child stared at him with huge, frightened eyes. Miller slowly held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, the child reached out and placed its small, six-fingered hand in Miller's. Something changed in that moment. The watching Valari seemed to understand that these strange, strong aliens had come to help them. "What are you?" asked the child in broken English, surprising Miller. He smiled gently behind his visor. "Just human, and we're here to help." Above the city, Lieutenant Porter's fighters engaged 3 Crixian destroyers that had cornered a Valari. Medical transport. The alien ship was damaged, limping toward orbit with hundreds of injured civilians aboard. "They're not going to make it," reported one of Porter's pilots. "Those destroyers are preparing to fire again." Porter made a split-second decision that would later become legendary in Federation accounts. "Form up on me. We're going to put ourselves between those destroyers and the transport." "Lieutenant, that's suicide," protested another pilot. "That's our job," Porter replied firmly. "To protect those who can't protect themselves. Form up now." Her squadron moved into position, their small fighters creating a human shield around the much larger Valari ship. When the Crixian destroyers fired, again it was human shields that took the brunt of the attack. Porter's fighters shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across her console. "Shields failing," she muttered, fighting to keep the craft stable. "But we're giving them time." The medical transport limped past them, finally reaching a safe distance where a human cruiser could extend, its protective shields around it. "We did it," Porter said, relief evident in her voice. "All fighters, regroup and prepare for another run." On the Valiant, Captain Holt received reports from both the ground teams and the fighter squadrons. The Crixians were being pushed back on multiple fronts, surprised by the ferocity and skill of the human forces. "Sir," said Commander Lawson, "the Federation observer ship is requesting permission to dock. They want to witness our operations firsthand." Holt raised an eyebrow. "Granted. Let them see exactly what Deathworlders can do when protecting the innocent." As the battle continued to rage, word spread through the Valari population. The humans had come. The Deathworlders had answered their call. And for the first time since the Crixian attack began, there was hope. The battle entered its second day. The Crixian forces, initially shocked by the human attack, had regrouped. Their remaining ships formed a tight formation, preparing for a massive counterattack. On the bridge of the UES Valiant, Captain Holt studied the tactical display. "They're changing their strategy," he observed. "No longer targeting the planet. Now they're focusing entirely on us." Commander Lawson nodded. "They see us as the bigger threat now." A communication officer called, "Out." "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Bradley has arrived with the second wave." Holt smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Put her through." Admiral Susan Bradley's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Holt could see the bridge of the newly commissioned UES Defender, the most advanced ship in Earth's fleet. "Captain Holt," said Bradley, her voice clear and commanding. "Report." "We've pushed the Crixians back from the planet, Admiral, but they're regrouping for another attack. They've deployed their elite forces, the Void Claws they call them." Bradley nodded. "I've studied the battle data you've transmitted. Their command structure is their weakness. I'm sending you new tactical orders. We'll divide their fleet and strike at their leadership." As Bradley spoke, a Federation diplomatic vessel docked with the Valiant. The observer Trillax and several other Federation officials came aboard, eager to witness human military operations up close. Captain Holt met them in a conference room adjacent to the bridge. Trillax's skin shifted colors rapidly, a sign of strong emotion among his species. "Captain," Trillax said, his three eyes blinking in sequence, "what we have witnessed is unprecedented. Your ships have withstood attacks that would destroy our best vessels." Holt remained professional. "We evolved on a harsh world, Ambassador. It made our technology equally robust." Another Federation official, a blue-skinned alien named Krillvor, seemed less impressed. "Your tactics are unusually aggressive. The Federation prefers a more measured approach to conflict." "With all due respect," Holt replied, "a measured approach wasn't working. The Volari were dying." Before the discussion could continue, Lieutenant Porter's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, the Crixians are targeting a refugee convoy, leaving the southern continent." Holt immediately turned away from the Federation officials. "On my way." He paused at the door. "You're welcome to observe from the bridge. See how Deathworlders protect the innocent." On the surface of the Volari, homeworld, Sergeant Miller and his Marines had established a secure evacuation zone in the capital city. Thousands of Volari civilians gathered there, waiting for transport ships to take them to safety. The situation was complicated by the toxic weapons the Crixians had deployed. Green clouds of poison gas drifted through parts of the city, lethal to Volari physiology. But the human Marines, with their sealed armor and experience with hazardous environments, moved through these areas with relative ease. "Miller, we've got a problem," called Private Cole over the comm. "Building collapse on the east side. At least 30 civilians trapped inside, and there's poison gas everywhere." Miller didn't hesitate. "Team 2, with me, bring extra breathing. Apparatus for the civilians." The Marines moved quickly through streets filled with green toxic mist. They reached a collapsed crystal tower where Volari were trapped under the rubble. "Standard Earth protocols," Miller ordered, "just like the Jakarta earthquake rescue." The Marines began carefully moving debris, using their powered armor to lift pieces that would require heavy machinery for most species. The watching Volari were astonished by the humans' strength and endurance. A Volari medical officer approached Miller. "Your people can work in this poison? It kills us within minutes of exposure." Miller helped lift a massive crystal beam. "We've dealt with chemical weapons, radiation, industrial accidents. Earth throws worse at us than this." The Volari seemed amazed. "What once made you feared now makes you our saviors." In orbit, the battle intensified. The Crixian flagship, a massive vessel called the Devourer, targeted its main weapons on a convoy of Volari refugee ships attempting to reach safety. Captain Holt watched from the Valiant's bridge, with the Federation observers standing silently behind him. "We can't get there in time," he said grimly. "Sir," reported a sensor officer, "the UES Resolute is moving to intercept." The UES Resolute was a human frigate that had already taken heavy damage in the fighting. Its shields were failing, its hull breached in multiple sections, yet it moved deliberately into the path between the Crixian flagship and the refugee convoy. Captain Laura Hayes of the Resolute opened a channel to all ships in the area. Her face appeared on the Valiant's screen, calm despite the alarms blaring behind her. "This is Captain Hayes of the UES Resolute. Our shields are failing and our engines are damaged beyond repair. But those refugees will reach safety." Holt stepped forward. "Laura, get your crew to the escape pods. We'll try to draw their fire." Hayes shook her head. "No time, Greg. Sometimes the only way to win is to make sure others survive." She straightened her uniform. "For Earth and all free peoples, remember us." The transmission cut off as the Crixian flagship fired its main cannon. The beam struck the Resolute directly. For a moment, the human ship's overtaxed shields flared brilliantly. Then they collapsed, and the energy beam cut through the vessel, from bow to stern. The Resolute exploded in a blinding flash of light, but its sacrifice had not been in vain. The refugee ships were now beyond the range of the Crixian weapons, safe under the protection of Admiral Bradley's newly arrived vessels. On the bridge of the Valiant, Captain Holt and his crew stood in silent tribute. Even the Federation observers seemed moved by the sacrifice they had just witnessed. Trillax's voice was quiet. "In all my years observing space combat, I have never seen such willingness to sacrifice for others, especially for a different species." Holt's face was grim as he turned back to the tactical display. "Now you understand who we really are." He opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Captain Holt. The Resolute and her crew gave everything so others could live. Let's make sure that sacrifice matters. All ships, prepare to execute Admiral Bradley's plan. We end this today." Throughout the fleet, the human crews, now fueled by a mixture of grief and determination, prepared for a coordinated attack. Captain Holt worked with Admiral Bradley to implement a complex maneuver that would split the Crixian formation. The Federation observers watched in fascination as human ships began to move in patterns they had never seen before. Some deliberately exposed weaknesses to draw Crixian fire, while others exploited the resulting gaps in the enemy formation. "Their command structure is too rigid," explained Holt to the observers. "They need constant orders from their flagship. We're about to cut off the head of the snake." On the surface, the tide was turning as well. Dr. Nicole Weber, leading a human medical team in the Valari capital, had made a breakthrough. Using modified human radiation treatment protocols, she developed a method to counteract the Crixian poison gas. "Your physiology is different," she explained to the astonished Valari medical team, "but poison is poison. We've been dealing with our own for centuries." As the treatment spread to more evacuation centers, the death rate among the Valari dropped dramatically. And with each life saved, the legend of the human Deathworlders grew. The Crixians had come, expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they found themselves facing the most formidable defenders in the galaxy, humans from Earth, a species forged in the crucible of a world that had tried to kill them every day of their evolution. And for the first time since their campaign of conquest began, the Crixians knew fear. 3 weeks after the initial distress call, the combined human and Federation forces achieved victory. The Crixian fleet retreated beyond the galactic rim, suffering their first major defeat in their campaign of conquest. The cost had been high, 14 human ships destroyed, thousands of personnel lost. But the Valari homeworld stood, and millions of civilians had been saved. In the main chamber of Harmony 7, the Federation's central diplomatic station, hundreds of alien representatives gathered for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. At the center of the chamber stood Ambassador Zarleth of the Valari, his gray skin now marked with patches of darker color, scars from the battles he had joined on his homeworld. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Federation," Zarleth began, his voice carrying across the hushed chamber. "For 50 years we have kept the humans of Earth at arm's length. We feared their strength, their resilience, their capacity for violence." He paused, looking around the chamber. "We called them Deathworlders and treated the term as an insult." Murmurs spread through the gathered aliens. Many shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Zarleth continued, "But when the Crixians came, when our world burned and our people died, who answered our call for help? Not the Zentari with their ancient wisdom, not the Brelics with their vast fleets. It was the humans, the Deathworlders who came. All of them. Without hesitation." He gestured toward the side entrance, where Admiral Susan Bradley and Captain Gregory Holt waited. They still wore their battle-worn uniforms, having come directly from the front lines. "I propose the immediate admission of humanity into the Galactic Federation, with full rights and privileges thereof." The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives shouted approval while others rose in protest. The Federation president, a tall, willowy alien named Sora Kal, raised her hands for quiet. "This is unprecedented," said a representative of the Zentari, one of the oldest species in the Federation. "The humans are too aggressive, too militaristic. Their involvement in galactic affairs could destabilize centuries of peace." "Peace?" responded Zarleth sharply. "Was it peace when the Crixians bombed our cities? When they released poison gas on our children? The humans showed us that sometimes protecting peace requires strength." The president gestured for Admiral Bradley and Captain Holt to approach the central platform. The two human officers walked forward, conscious of thousands of alien eyes upon them. "The council would hear from the humans directly," said President Sorakal. Admiral Bradley stepped forward first. Though she had spent decades in military service, this was surely her most important diplomatic moment. "Representatives of the Federation," she began, her voice steady, "you fear us, perhaps with reason. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us daily. We fought wars against ourselves that nearly ended our civilization. But we learned from those mistakes." She gestured to the stars visible through the station's crystal dome. "We came into space not to conquer, but to explore, not to destroy, but to build. When we heard the Volari cry for help, we did not hesitate because that is who we are. Not just warriors, but protectors." Captain Holt stepped forward next. 3 weeks ago, I led a fleet to save people I had never met. I lost friends and colleagues in that battle. The UES Resolute and her entire crew sacrificed themselves to save Volari refugees. His voice grew quieter, but no less intense. "You called us Deathworlders as if it were a mark of shame. But our harsh world gave us the strength to help when you needed it most. We don't ask for your gratitude, only the chance to be part of something greater than ourselves." The chamber fell silent as the Federation representatives considered the humans' words. Finally, President Sorakal rose from her seat. "Throughout our history," she said, "we have prided ourselves on the diversity that brings us strength. Yet, we feared those different from the majority. Today we recognize our error. Today we welcome Earth not despite their differences, but because of them." She approached Bradley and Holt, extending her four-fingered hands in the Federation's gesture of welcome. "Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Federation. Your strengths are now our strengths. Your people are now our people." The chamber filled with applause, though some representatives remained seated, their doubts not entirely erased. 1 month later, the UES Valiant led a diplomatic fleet back toward Earth, accompanied by representatives from 20 Federation worlds. They would formalize the agreement and begin the process of integrating humans into galactic society. On the observation deck of the Valiant, Captain Holt stood watching the stars streak past. Lieutenant Porter joined him, her uniform now bearing a new medal, the Federation Star, awarded for her heroism in protecting the Volari evacuation ships. "It's strange to think how much has changed," Porter said, looking out at the stars. "A month ago we were isolated, feared. Now we're taking Federation representatives to Earth." Holt nodded. "We were isolated because they feared what we might become. Now we have the chance to show them what we truly are." Porter watched as the ship's navigation system showed their approach to the Sol system. Earth would soon come into view. No longer just humanity's homeworld, but now a recognized member of a vast galactic community. "And what are we, Captain?" "The same thing we've always been," Holt replied with a smile. "Survivors, explorers, and when necessary, protectors. In the diplomatic quarters, Trillax met with Ambassador Zarleth. The Observer's report on human capabilities had caused a sensation throughout the Federation. "Do you think they understand what this means?" Trillax asked. "Humans will change the Federation forever." Zarleth looked toward the observation deck where Holt and Porter stood. "They understand better than we do. That's why they came when we called." On Earth, preparations were underway to welcome the first official Federation delegation. Streets were decorated, speeches prepared. But in military bases around the world, the lessons of the Valari conflict were already being studied. Admiral Bradley met with Earth's leadership, her expression serious. "The galaxy is more dangerous than we knew. The Crixians won't be the last threat we face." "Are you suggesting we shouldn't join the Federation?" asked one official. Bradley shook her head. "I'm suggesting we remember who we are. We're not just joining their community, we're becoming its shield." As the Valiant approached Earth, Captain Holt received a message from Harmony 7. The Federation Council had created a new position, Commander of the Joint Defense Force, a multi-species fleet that would protect Federation worlds from threats, like the Crixians. They wanted Holt to lead it. He looked at Earth growing larger in the view screen. The blue oceans and green continents of humanity's home, now known across the galaxy not just as the birthplace of Deathworlders, but as the home of humanity, the protectors who came when called. Holt smiled. The stars had never seemed so bright, with promise. "Signal Earth Command," he told the communications officer. "Tell them the Deathworlders are coming home, and we're bringing new friends."